Mayor Watson, thank you for taking some time out
My
to talk
pleasure.
with us. Big announcement, you are running for re-election.
I am running for re-election. I'll be on the ballot in November. It's, the way things synced up, this was a unique time because this mayor's term was only 2 years, and I want to run and be elected to a full 4-year term because there's still work I want to get done.
Let's talk about it. When you ran, I had the pleasure of talking to you several times during that campaign season, and you talked about a back to basics methodology. That's what you wanted to do. You wanted to get Austin back to the basics. Have you been able to do that so far?
Oh, we've made significant progress and change in that regard. Yeah, I feel like back to your question, when I first went into office just a little over a year ago, I think generally it was felt like City Hall wasn't taking care of the basics. And I think now, a little over a year later, people generally believe that we are back on track and we are taking care of the basics. Let me give a couple of thoughts on that. It was just a very short time after I took office that we realized that the reaction to the winter storm and things of that nature proved that we weren't where we needed to be. So we removed the city manager. We brought in an interim city manager who was a real pro and had experience with Austin city government. And we made a number of other changes, things like at the airport, the director of Austin Energy, things of that nature. A couple of other big changes. When I first took office, if you called 911, there was about a 50% chance that you were going to get that phone call answered within 15 seconds. And that's the standard, is how fast do you answer within 15 seconds? We really paid attention to that basic service, and most of probably last year it was in the mid to high 70s, but now it's around 93%, which is a good result. One of the things that we knew was a problem is we were having difficulty with housing, in part because the city just took so long to address site plans and permitting. And so we brought in a third party to scrub that from top to bottom, and we've made significant improvement in that regard. So I could go on and on about different things, but we've said we were going to do it. There's still work to be done. That's why I want a 4-year term. But to be where we are in just a little over a year is something to be pretty proud of.
Yeah, this is unlike most elections where I'm talking to you 3 years down the road and 4 years down the road of you running for re-election. Do you feel like you've made, though, enough progress in 1 year to show people that you deserve to get re-elected?
Oh yeah, because I hear it pretty much everywhere I go. And I see it with other elected officials who know what it takes to be the mayor of Austin, Texas. They know what it takes to be in elective office and what they see and what they say. So yeah, I feel, in fact, I feel very comfortable. The level of support that we've had over the last year and a couple of months, and the level of support that people are putting behind me, encouraging me, saying please run for a second term, has been extremely gratifying and humbling.
What are you most proud of that you've done within this time?
Well, I think probably is making sure that we're addressing the issues that we really ought to be addressing. Things like affordability. One of the big things that when I came in to office, we were talking about affordability and how, for example, in the area of housing, how is it that we can get more housing on the ground? Whether it's affordable or deeply affordable, or just more housing so more people will be able to live in Austin and in the central part of Austin. The city had been stagnant when it came to being able to make the kinds of changes that it needed to make. Well, in just, again, a little over a year, we've made significant changes and have more on the horizon. In addition to that, we haven't just addressed affordability for people from an equitable standpoint that is just about housing. We've also been addressing it from the perspective of how do we get more money into people's pockets. I've said I want to change the economic development paradigm so that we don't just focus on the number of new jobs we created, although I want us to keep creating those jobs, but I want to focus on the people that we can get into those jobs. So for example, with around $25 billion worth of infrastructure projects on the horizon, everything from the airport to Project Connect and others. We've got real career opportunities. So what we've done is we've launched the Austin Infrastructure Academy so that we can get people into family supporting paying jobs and career paths so that they can afford to raise families right here in Austin, Texas. So things like addressing those issues has been a very important part of what we're doing.
Let's talk about housing. When you ran, you introduced a bold idea regarding Decker Lake. You wanted to see the city put housing there. You said we could put 3 Millers there, 3 Miller developments there, and still have abundant parkland. Is that something that you still want to see done? Something you think can still happen?
You know, one of the things that we just did is about 2 weeks ago, it may have been 3 weeks ago now, I kind of lose track sometimes, we voted to be part of the Eastern Crescent planning process and to create a planning process. And my hope is that as part of that planning process, we'll specifically address issues related to that lake and what could be done out there. When you stop and think about the fact that we have the Green Line that runs from downtown out to right there at the Expo Center. And when we passed almost a year ago, when we passed the beginning process of the equitable transit-oriented developments and what we wanted to do in terms of the planning process for that, we put potential what are called ETODs, transit-oriented developments, equitable transit-oriented developments along that Green Line leading right out to that lake area. So now that we've got the planning process into place, I'd like to see us move forward. That's one example. That's actually a pretty good example of where a little over a year hadn't been enough, and one of the reasons that I'm eager for a longer term.
You mentioned, though, some advancements that have been made in housing, getting more housing in Austin. Can you give us some examples of some projects that are coming online?
Well, specific projects that are coming online, the one that I am immediately jumps to my mind is the city purchasing the old Tokyo Electron facility. That is, since you use Miller as an example, that is kind of a mini Miller. It's not as many acres, but it's something that we can master plan in a way so that we get the kind of development we want, including the level of housing that we want and including the type of housing we want, so that we can have not just a lot of housing, but affordable housing, and in some cases deeply affordable housing, and it's positioned on the rail line. So that what happens is not only do we get more housing, but we get more affordability because it's on a rail line, so many people will not have to have a car, or maybe any car at all in some instances, or maybe they can do away with one of their cars and save money in that way as well. So it's that sort of thoughtfulness and then moving on things that has been part of the success and will be part of the success going forward.
I want to talk about some of the staffing changes because, again, you noted one when we first started talking, and there's been plenty of things happening within the city. When we talk about the city manager, obviously the council making the decision to hire Mr. Broadnax out of Dallas. Talk to us about how critical of a hire that is and, what you hope to see with that.
Well, that hire is one of the most important things that the city council will do. I'm real proud of the city council and the way we all work together as a team. The way that all worked out, and it's important when you stop and think about how stable is City Hall and how are we doing in terms of stabilizing city government the way we should. When we let the previous permanent city manager go, one of the things we said we wanted to do was we wanted to be patient and we wanted to take our time. We didn't need to run right out and hire another city manager. And a big reason for that was that we wanted to stabilize city government and get some things fixed. And we brought in an interim who, as I've indicated, was a pro and knew the city of Austin. But we brought that interim in to do those kinds of fixes that needed to occur, to stabilize and reorganize in some instances. And that's why you've seen some of the significant changes that you've seen. Now, the city manager, the new city manager that we just hired last week, and will start the first week of May, that new city manager, who has experience not only for 30 years of experience in city management, but also in a big city, in a big Texas city, that person can focus on the future and not have to focus on trying to fix things that we needed some relatively immediate fixes done. Mr. Broadnax I think we did a good job. I think we have a really good city manager. I've had the opportunity to spend more time with him talking about the future and where we're going to go. And I'm excited about what the future means with this new city manager and with his focus on everything from budgeting to equity to making sure that the basics are taken care of at City Hall.
And what about the search for a police chief?
Well, that's going to be one of the first things on this city manager's job description is finding us going through that process. Hiring a police chief is one of those things that takes a really good manager a period of time. You need to have community input. You need to do all the kinds of things that Austin's going to want us to have him do in that regard. So the decision was made by the interim city manager to let that fall to the new city manager, and I think that was a good call. So I look forward to that being one of the first things you see Mr. Broadnax talking about.
What about the situation with Art Acevedo?
Tell me about that.
So you tell me about that, about how apparently upset, particularly members of the council were at the idea of him coming back, just as in an advisory role.
Well, look, sometimes the city managers get it right, and sometimes they don't get it right, based upon the input that they receive, and that's the city manager's job. The city manager makes the decisions about hiring in those kinds of situations. The city manager made that decision. Several members of the council and the community indicated they weren't for that, and he and ultimately Art Acevedo, Chief Acevedo, decided not to take the position.
Is it something you wanted to see happen?
I wanted to see things happen that I thought would better the relationship, and I'm always looking for things that will better the relationship between our police and City Hall. And the manager's stated goal was to bring somebody in that he thought would be able to do that. That is an appropriate goal.
You talked when we back then in 2022, we talked a lot about Austin as you knew it when you first made the decision to move here and to stay here. You say you didn't plan to stay here and where it is now. And you talked specifically about Austin having an abundance, and that there was so much of an abundance of things you were able to establish a life here, and you don't see that right now, that we aren't keeping up with that pace. What have you done within this past year and 4 months to build that abundance towards the next 20 years?
So I feel stronger about it today than I did when we talked about it when I was running a little over a year ago. I have listened to the young people in this community time and time again tell me about their worries about being able to build a life in Austin, Texas. And I got to tell you, that scares me. What you've probably heard me say is that I really believe that the fountain of youth, what makes Austin Austin, is the fact that it has embraced change. It has embraced the fact that every year this fountain of youth comes to Houston Tillotson, it comes to Concordia, it comes to St. Ed's, or that little public university we have called the University of Texas at Austin. And these young people bring new thought, new creativity, new music, new culture, whatever it is. And then they say, I don't ever want to leave. And so they build the Austin of the future in that way. I am scared that if we're not making decisions today on things like housing and making it affordable so that people can live in this place, that we're going to lose out on that fountain of youth. we're going to lose that creativity, that change in culture, and we won't be the Austin we want us to be. We cannot be the generation that creates intergenerational inequity. We need to be focusing on generational equity, and that's the whole push behind getting more housing and getting more ability for people to be able to live in this town.
When we talk about the work, you mentioned earlier that you're proud of the work that the council has done and how you all work together. But at the news of you deciding to run for re-election, one of the council members, Allison Alter, says she's making the decision not to endorse you this time around. She says, quote, Watson has acted as a bully and prevented real policy deliberations by members of the council and the public, end quote. How do you respond to being characterized as a bully?
Well, that's disappointing that she would say that, and it surprises me that she would say that, particularly in light of the fact that 8 of the 10 members of the council have endorsed me. I guess if I were in a situation where I was using that kind of language, I might ask why I'm the one on the outside of everybody else.
Do you feel as though the council is collaborative?
Even if you look at something like our recent hiring of the city manager, that was a process that normally would be a very difficult process, but because we worked together pretty well as a team, that turned out the way you'd want it to do. The last budget cycle, the way that budget process went is another example of that. So I think you see a lot of working together, and look, I'm not going to make everybody happy, but 80% is pretty good.
Yeah, 80% is pretty good. Give us some final thought. We're running out of time here, so give us some final thoughts about why voters should choose to elect you again and give you 4 years, a nice full 4-year term as mayor of Austin.
Well, because they know I'm somebody that'll get things done. They know that I'm somebody that has the proven record of getting things done, and if I do say so myself, have proved it in the past year and a couple of months. In a very short period of time, we've changed the way business is done at City Hall, and we're making real progress on things that people said you're not going to make any progress on. Everything from being told that you'll never be at the table talking about a police contract with the police, but yet we're at the table talking about a police contract. We have a police contract a contract with EMS and a contract with the firefighters. Those are the kinds of things that we get them done, that people said, well, it's going to be hard. I don't know that you can do it in that period of time, and we've pulled that off. There's still work really needs to be done, and we need somebody that has proven they can get it done, as opposed to making sure that things are kind of broken from time to time.